What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So as we work towards the Game Awards here in the next couple of weeks, of course, there's going to be a lot of hype, anticipation, and speculation around this show, as most people will tune in for the announcements instead of just the awards. Well, Geoff Keighley looks like he's doing his job working to hype up an announcement that he's been working on for over 2 years now. We're going to go over that one here today. Also, we're going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, as there was a major milestone that was reached in the decompilation of the game. And we're also going to be talking about a leak that popped up online, adding more and more legitimacy towards a game we heard about from Capcom a little while ago. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with the Nintendo 64 and the Polymega. Now, the Polymega had some issues in development, specifically delays, but eventually they got it out there. Pre-orders were filled, and now they're looking to take more orders heading into 2022. And I know MVG did an entire video around this system. It's interesting because it has different modules that you can attach to the system, which gives you access to other legacy systems and hardware like the Sega Saturn. I got the Neo Geo CD, different cartridge-based systems, but it looks like their next module will be focusing on the Nintendo 64. You can see an image of that here with Nintendo Life having the exclusive and a sit-down with the CEO over at Polymega. Now, the idea here is you will be putting this module on the system and you'll pop your actual 64 cartridge in, at which point I guess it would like rip the ROM to the system because it will be working off of emulation, which is still a sticking point for people based on how expensive this system is. Just like the base model is $450, then you want to start building up attachments, very quickly break into the $600, even $700 range. But it is cool to see finally some sort of, I guess you'd say, what we call a clone system for the Nintendo 64. I hope we see more and more of these going forward, but it will be interesting to see how they pull this one off, and I'm sure MVG will be talking quite a bit about it after it releases. Also, we did have a look at the UK sales charts after, of course, Black Friday sales, and go figure, the #1 selling game this past week was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You can see it here at the top. Then we have FIFA 22 at 2, Minecraft on the Switch at 3, Call of Duty Vanguard at 4, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy at 5. Actually, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond dropped all the way down to 6 from that #1 slot. Then we have Just Dance 2022, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Far Cry 6, and Mario Party Superstars. Shining Pearl dropped out of the top 10 to #11. And Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, while it's funny to see it at the top, makes sense why it would be there. It had a massive spike in sales, actually over 560% week on week, and that's because, of course, it was part of Nintendo's Black Friday console bundle. Yeah, that's right, they do count the bundles as individual sales for the game, which is one of the reasons that Wii Sports is such a massive seller overall, because it came with a majority of Wiis for years and years. So yeah, obviously it sells over 80 million just because of that. Now, I do still think this is something that will continue for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but hey, if Nintendo wants to do it again next year, yeah, we'll probably see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at the top of the chart. Meanwhile, throughout the year, it seems to float around in the 10 to 20 range consistently. Like I said, it will end up being the best-selling game on the Switch, probably when it's all said and done, a game that started on the Wii U. Oh, and we also had a port announced over the weekend that is actually, I think, long overdue, and we can see this tweet here from Sega announcing that 13 Sentinels will be coming to the Switch on April 12th, 2022. This is a game that I felt like a lot of people overlooked, but it still sold, I believe, 500,000 copies, which for a heavily niche game like this is very good. Now, this is from Atlas and Vanillaware, and it's a very solid game. If you have not played it, it might be a bit different overall, something that people aren't necessarily used to playing. Like I said, it is a highly niche game, but it is a good game, and it's cool to see it going to the Switch. Again, something I think that is long overdue for it, and will probably give it a nice little boost in sales going into next year. But certainly something to look into here if you missed it when it released on the PlayStation. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. There has been a project that's been ongoing for a while now, where they are trying to decompile the game so that it can be easily modified and you can have different things added into the game. And then you can load it up on other platforms. You can port it to the PC natively. We've seen people also port something like Mario 64 after it was decompiled to other platforms. Well, it does look like for Ocarina of Time, that work has mostly finished up. There are still some things to tie up at the end to complete it 100%, but most of the heavy lifting essentially has been done. We can see this over on VGC where they say a fan group has successfully reverse engineered 100% of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time's game code. And this is from the community-led Zelda Reverse Engineering Team, or ZRET, where they say last night Fig, who is a notable community member as well as a project lead, matched the last remaining function in the project. This means that all compiled code in the game has been turned into human-readable C code. We thought for a time that we may never be able to match every function completely, so this is an incredibly exciting accomplishment. Dozens of people helped work on this project, and together we were able to achieve something amazing. Now, if you remember what happened when Mario 64 was fully decompiled and people were able to really dig into that game, there were all kinds of modifications put out there and the game looked incredible after a little while. Like I said, there are a lot of modifications, things done to it outside of just the visual style of it, but we had like ray tracing added in, the resolution was boosted, the visuals around the character model and the environments were completely redone. Is just a completely different game. And yeah, it was ported to other platforms and run natively on the PC, but like Ocarina of Time could be taken to a whole other level over Mario 64. Obviously a game that people look back on with fond memories, the best rated game of all time, but you look at the visual style on the 64 and yeah, you could have quite a bit of work done to that. Now, the other part of this is you can actually go through the code easier and then discover different things in the game, maybe even fix them, certain bugs or other issues in that game. But it was just really cool to see the progress made here as we've gone along with Ocarina of Time. And the one thing I am curious is if Nintendo will try to get involved with something like this. They mostly stayed out of Mario 64 outside of pulling down certain videos, showing things off at first, then they kind of left it alone from there. There's not a lot they can do if it's done completely by the book when it comes to decompiling these things. It's fully legal and within the rights to do it. But still, Nintendo is very protective of their IPs, and I'm sure they'll at least explore it to see if there is any option for them to pull the project down, but it's just about 100% complete. You figured they would have already done it if they were going to. But I guess we'll find out as we go along and this thing starts getting ported to different systems. And of course, we start seeing visual upgrades across the board for it. Next up, let's talk about the Game Awards coming up here in a couple of weeks. And generally, it's pretty exciting as we get closer to it. It's like its own little mini E3 sort of, right? Like we've had some good announcements, unexpected announcements, certainly. We had the Series X announced there. We had like Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3, things we weren't expecting necessarily, but it does look like Geoff Keighley is building up another massive show here in December and doing what he's supposed to do. That's build hype for the show. For example, you can see this over on Twitter where he says, just saw the final cut of a Game Awards world premiere we have been working on with a developer for 2.5 years. Truly honored we are entrusted to share this work with the world. He goes on further saying 2.5 years sounds like a long time, but summer of 2019 was actually my last global tour to visit developers. I always have so much fun visiting studios and hearing about their projects. Hope to do it again in 2022. Obviously, he's being very vague here and people start speculating all over the place. There's a lot of assumptions that this could be something from Nintendo, like Breath of the Wild 2. I mean, you put it on the main stage there for Game Awards and you showcase the actual title for it, some new gameplay, small little hints and teases, of course, that'll then be zoomed in on and speculated further online. We'll get a lot of eyes on the Game Awards and, of course, a lot of eyes on the trailers that they would then host themselves. But I'm kind of getting the feeling this is a different game, maybe Hellblade 2, considering we saw the initial reveal for Hellblade 2 next to the Series X in 2019, and you figure 2.5 years ago would have placed it, I don't know, about 6 months before that. So, hey, maybe he's visiting developers around the time he's putting together the show to show off the Series X. Here's Hellblade 2, where he's at the studio, and now they're finally going to show off full gameplay and just in-game visuals for a game that I'm sure is going to be very impressive looking overall. Really, this could be anything. You could have Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, or other third parties show up there with some big reveal that would, of course, set the internet on fire. Maybe that Metroid Prime remake, that'd be cool. Metroid Prime 4, like I said, it's anyone's guess right now, but it seems like the leading candidate, at least from what I see online, is Breath of the Wild 2. But what if Nintendo wasn't there at all? What if they didn't have a major reveal? A lot of times people will fall back on a Smash character reveal. Well, that's not happening now, obviously, so it's anyone's guess, and let me know your best thoughts down below in the comments as to what we could see here that Geoff has been aware of and working on for 2.5 years now. Next up, let's talk about a game that appears to have leaked out once again, this time though with visual evidence. That's Resident Evil 4 Remake, a game that it was controversial when it was starting to get out there, and we had reports around this being a thing within Capcom because people are worried that they could actually ruin what is a genuine classic of a game, right? A lot of people look at that and say that's one of the best games of all time, and Capcom's gonna attempt to remake it. They've done well with Resident Evil 2 and pretty well with Resident Evil 3, and yeah, I guess Resident Evil 4 would be next up, but we can see this over on VGC saying Resident Evil 4 Remake art allegedly shared by Wesker voice actor, and we can see a tweet further down. This is from Beware saying, so not only did DC Douglas break NDA on livestream, that's not good, by admitting to being Wesker in the Separate Ways portion of the new Resident Evil 4 Remake, but he also sent out concept art given to him by Capcom. So we can see the tweet here with that concept art, and yeah, you're probably not supposed to do that on stream. Tell everyone that you're part of Resident Evil 4 Remake, a project that apparently has had some issues in development where it was taken away, or at least the role for M2 was reduced a bit, and they have Capcom's Division 1, there's internal there, working on this project now. And it's good that they decided to do that if there were issues, because the worst thing you could do now is damage Resident Evil 4's image in any way, like release a poor product. That's a game you have to be very, very careful with. And like I said, we've heard a lot of rumors and reports around this being a thing, so I'm not surprised that, oh yeah, there is concept art for Resident Evil 4 Remake. There potentially is a voice actor talking about this, because I do believe it will happen, but it's probably still a couple years off from reveal, especially with some of the development issues they've gone through. This is something that we probably won't hear too much about until like late 2022, maybe even midway through 2023, but it's going to be interesting when we do see it, and they just might want to, I guess, be careful with the concept art that they're giving out, because we have seen this quite a bit with different voice actors or musicians just kind of talking about the games they're working on currently. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a recent patent that was spotted from PlayStation, or SIE, and we can see an image of it here, and yeah, it looks like 2 controller attachments for a cell phone, and this certainly caused some conversation online, because the idea of Sony pursuing the cell phone market is leading to some concern for people, because which direction would they take this exactly? I am not personally surprised to see Sony have these DualShock attachments planned out at the bare minimum with a patent for phones, because we have heard that they are working towards development of their bigger franchises for cell phones. They have an entire division that they've pretty much stood up now in order to do that. So moving over something like God of War, Horizon, you could potentially put Ghost of Tsushima, and all you really need is some of your franchises that you've built up in order to then design more cell phone friendly games around. And what I mean by that is, well, gacha games. I mean, that's what works really well on these, on the phone market right now. And Nintendo figured that out very quickly after Mario Run did not do so well. They shifted over to what they see with Fire Emblem right now, and they're making a ton of money. So I do believe that eventually that's the route that Sony will take, a free-to-play gacha style experience there. But the other potential thing here is they could be working this out for remote play, which is something they've continued to update more and more for mobile devices, your cell phone, your tablet, where you don't need a Vita to do remote play. You can use your iPhone, you can use your Android phone, and the idea of buying attachments that more or less mirror what you would be playing when you're sitting in front of your PlayStation. In this case, it looks like a DualShock 4, makes a lot of sense. I mean, we've seen the Razer Kishi and the Backbone and several other attachments come to market, and I have seen people buying these and posting their experiences up online. So yeah, there is I'd say a young market currently for these attachments, but as we see cloud gaming continue to grow more and more, I do believe these will continue to be something that will build as we go along, and at the very least, you know, getting like a cheap phone using this attachment would be kind of a good idea for remote play, or if you just have an old phone that you're not necessarily using sitting in a drawer, if you get an attachment like this for it for maybe like $60 or something, hook it up, wouldn't be a bad way to at least play your PlayStation remotely. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Nintendo have a major reveal at the Game Awards in a few weeks? 57% said no, 43% said yes. And this is tough because, well, the big thing is you really can't guess what's at the Game Awards now. We saw an entire console revealed at the Game Awards. So sure, Breath of the Wild 2, they could have the full title reveal. They could show some gameplay. Very, very possible there. Or yeah, they could say, hey, here's Metroid Prime Remake, and then here's a quick teaser of Metroid Prime 4. Anything's possible now. And like I said, that's the part that gets me the most excited about the Game Awards. Although Game of the Year will be very interesting because that is something that I'm looking at and there's no clear frontrunner for it. So we at least get to see, I'm sure, some pretty good game reveals and close out with, I would say, a very interesting lineup for Game of the Year. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from random guy saying, I don't understand why you don't get experience by getting kills and doing tasks like capturing a flag or holding the ball. It makes the multiplayer boring. You are not being rewarded for playing. That's something that does come up a lot as well. It's like, hey, if I do really well, I'm like 20-3 this round and I capture all these flags. I should get more experience than the person who's not even playing. Is that just me? I feel like half the time I go into a Halo match and someone's just not playing. Like, sure, it's in quick play and in ranked it's a bit different, but you feel like if there was an incentive to play the game as opposed to just jumping in, leaving your controller around, and you'll still get 50 experience, yeah, maybe you would have less people AFK. It's just always strange to me because you have to actually hit a button to go into the game. So you figure at that point you're at least locked in for the next 10 minutes, but it keeps happening. Let me know if that's happening to you. People who just show up in your Halo game and they're not playing, and yeah, of course, they're on your team. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was Resident Evil 4 Remake with concept art leaking out. How do you feel about Capcom remaking a classic like that one? And then also, what about the Game Awards and this world premiere that Geoff has been working on for the last 2.5 years? What do you think it's gonna be? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.